Hi everyone, and welcome back to Know Thine Enemy. I'm Walt, and like you, I'm a bad Commander player. But you're in luck because I know some good Commander players. And they're going to teach me how to be a better player.
Or else.
This week, I'm joined by Cooper, aka Stubbs, as a lot of you will know him by. Cooper, your mother was a hamster, and your father smelled of elderberries. Oh, sorry. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from such infomercials as Completion, Not As Bad As It Seems, and The Unsociable Politician. No, I'm joking. Hi, I'm Cooper. I'm a Pisces. I love long walks on the beach, and I occasionally slam cardboard on the table.
That's just a small insight into the Tinder profile for anyone who is interested. Sorry, could you introduce your Magic the Gathering? Yeah, intro would be good. Nah, I'm kidding. Yes, it's Cooper. It's Stubbs. It's Cooper Stubbs. He is our beloved Infect player. How long have you been playing Magic for?
So I started in between, I think I started just before M12, so that would have been 2011.
That's a good time to start. It's very easy to remember those sets were very, by the book every year, I think, right? It was like, because they did like the editions, and then I think M10 came out like in 2010, right? Or like a little before or whatever it was.
What they usually did was they would release the core set for the year, M12 the year before.
Yeah, that's right. Like towards the end of the previous year. So like M21 came out
in 2020, yeah.
The end of 2020, yeah. And they didn't do a set this year, did they?
No, it was the D&D set, yeah.
Yeah, they did the D&D instead. I'm interested to see if they keep doing that.
It looks fun.
Yeah, it's just like, I feel like the main thing is, because my understanding is a big part of the reason they do the core sets is for standard, and it's to kind of just like, because it doesn't have to be a story or even a theme, they can just print cards that they think will like round out the format. Like in M21, they had Ugin, which is a terrible idea. But I'm sure that they thought like, decks need a top end, we'll reprint Ugin. Or like, I don't know, they thought, wouldn't it be great if Teferi was more broken? So they printed Teferi Master of Time.
To be fair, that Teferi was actually kind of... I can't believe I'm saying this. It was okay.
Really? In Standard?
Yeah. Well, in Standard, it was a bit of a pain, but it wasn't necessarily as much of a pain as Time Raveler, which is banned, and the Dominaria. I think it's Hero Dominaria. But yeah, that Teferi was definitely the less of the evils. It was still evil, but it wasn't as evil.
When did you start playing Commander? How long after you started? So you started before M12. How long after that was it that you started playing Commander?
So I started playing in between my two favorite sets, which was New Phyrexia and Innistrad, but Commander was a lot later. I would, in like early 2015, I would borrow this person's Nahiri precon and just play that on the table because I didn't really have the money to buy a precon. I was always buying stuff for Standard and Modern at the time until Commander 2015 came out in November. So I picked up the Azuri precon because the store that I used to play at didn't have the Marin precon, which is what I wanted. But then I found the Marin precon a day later, so I got both, and yeah, that's when I started, really.
Wow, that's so cool. That's so funny to think that, because like to me, your like Azuri deck and your Marin deck are like the OGs, But that's funny to think that you literally bought the precons. Like that's how you got all those cards in the first place.
Yeah, and I didn't want the Azuri deck, but I bought it because we'll get into this later, but I was a massive War fan, and seeing a character like Azuri turned was awesome, and I thought it was the second coolest deck, and it turns out that it was, I think it's the most valuable out of the 2015 decks. I think it had the most value in it, so Happy little accidents.
What was the like big drawing card? Like I feel like every precon has that one, like hectic, amazing card. Is there one in the Azuri deck that you can think of that was like everyone wanted to get their hands on?
Oh God, what was it? At the time, it might have been Thought Vessel because once upon a time that was $15.
Wow, Thought Vessel. I mean, I remember a time when Thought Vessel was $5, but $15, that's wild. I feel like that's been printed into the ground now. It's like $1, I think, like a couple bucks.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, good. It's not. Yeah, it's like Reliquary Tower. Like people play it too much. Anyway, we'll get into that later.
That might have also been a chase card in that precon at the time.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's also one that was very expensive, and I feel like we'll probably get there again. Although I think Wizards are super aware of how popular certain commander cards are now, and they just include them all the time. Like, I don't think Reliquary Tower is ever going to be expensive again. I feel like they're just going to put it in like every second precon,
Yeah, which like you should. It's a good card for newer players, so yeah, I'm all for just putting those types of cards in precons.
Yeah, 100%. Now you might have the most commander decks of anyone at our store, and I say might because like I know exactly how many I have. I know exactly how many my good friend James has. There are a couple of others who I know are like pushing me for numbers, but every time I mention to Nick, God, Nick gets to mention every episode, lucky bastard. Every time I mention to Nick that I feel like I might have the most decks, he's like, "You don't understand how many Stubbs has." So, Cooper Stubbs, how many commander decks do you own?
16, soon to be 18.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What?
I'm not proud of it.
I am. That's awesome. How many? What are the two new ones? What are the two you're about to build?
So originally in the script, I put 15, soon to be 18, but I recently got the cards for one of them, which you dropped off at the game store for me. Thank you very much, by the way.
Oh, the Merfolk deck.
Yeah. Svaloon of the Sea and Sky, because oh my god, that art, and I've just been jamming Merfolk in Historic, and I just love it.
It's such a cool tribe. I wish it got more love.
It's such an underrated tribe. I love it. The two new ones are Oscar Modular.
Oh, cool. The Boros Artifacts one. Yeah. Awesome commander.
And the other one is going to be Nafi Snow Zombies, because I've just been jamming a lot of Nafi in Standard, and he's if you get Nafi and you don't exile him, he's incredibly hard to get rid of, and it's just so much pressure on the board and stuff. So I really like those kinds of commanders, which you can keep them outside the command zone and just keep replaying them.
Yeah, it's nice when you have those. Yeah, either commanders that are very, very cheap in mana value. So like I have a Reese the Redeemed deck where like people almost never remove him because they know that I'll just play him again. Like, because he's 1 the first time, so the second time he's 3, the third time he's 5. Even 5 is so fine for what you get on that card. So people just don't bother,
You want to see me play my commander? You want to see me do it again?
Exactly right. Do you have favorites?
Oh,
could
God,
you give us an all-star top 3 favorite of your commander decks?
All right, I won't mention Azuri because that's for another thing. I will mention Marin though, because the shell of the deck is the exact same as it was 6 years ago when I started playing it. I've just upgraded it, but the deck's never lost a character. I'm pretty sure if you're not at the game store, you won't know this, but if you're at the game store, you'll know my love for Urza, because yeah, that was the first competitive EDH deck that I built, which competitive EDH, you focus on getting a win as early as turn 2. And Urza went, for the longest time, was probably the commander deck it was probably the commander deck for the longest time that went without losing. its first loss was 4 months after it was built.
Wow. Yeah, I can believe that. It's a real powerhouse of a card. For those who are sort of, because it'll be up on the screen right now, if I could sort of explain just how ridiculous it is. It's probably, I think it's pretty easy to say that the most problematic part of that card is the fact that it makes your artifacts tap for blue.
Yeah.
Because it turns just like cards that are already good, great, and cards that are worthless, good. Like, what's the 0 mana Everflowing Chalice? Sees a bit of play in Commander because, you know, people play it, pay 2, it enters with 1 counter, it's tapping for 1 colorless turn. It's not too bad. It's a pretty decent rate. It's colorless mana, which can be a bit awkward, but it's not too bad. In an Urza deck, you don't pay anything. You play it for the 0, and that is a mana rock that taps for 1 blue. Like, you have gotten a discount of 2 mana, and you're getting colored mana instead. Anyway, so you basically play Urza, you get this huge construct for no reason. Mm-hmm. It's just like, it's just so typical of this time in Magic's history where Wizards was like, what if it did 5 more things as well? You know,
yeah, literally.
It's like the I won't say it properly because everyone will get mad, but Tulane, that sort of a commander where it's just like, what if it did all the good stuff at once? You know, what if they liked playing creatures and lands, the things that people never do in Commander ever. Anyway, so yeah, Urza gives you a construct for no reason, and then cherry on top, if you can get infinite mana, which by the way is extremely easy in Urza.
Oh yeah, it's so easy.
You literally have the means on the Commander to play your entire deck because of that. Is it pay 4 or pay 5?
Pay 5.
To exile. Pay 5. Exile the top card of your library. You can play it this turn. You just keep doing it as many times as you want to. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and with like a deck full of just interaction and stuff, because that's what you need in CDH. You need a lot of interaction. It's once you get infinite mana and you sink all of it into the ability, you pretty much have your entire library to play. So you've won on the spot, essentially. There's no real interaction because you've got all the counter spells in the world, and it's very, very hard to lose from that point.
Yeah, no, I could believe it. I've seen it in action a few times. I don't think I've ever been in an actual game with it, just because I don't personally own any CEDH decks. But it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary to come up against. Yeah, we've got a few people with CEDH decks around the store. Do you think more Commander players should play CEDH?
Honestly, just play what you want. I'd say give CEDH a try, just so that you know what it takes to be like the top of the format. But Commander's a casual format. Just play what you want. Just have fun. And if you want to get a taste of like the very top competitive type of stuff, or if you want to see how Commander will pilot in an incredibly competitive sense, then by all means go and play CDH. Give it a shot. It will be very jarring to get used to because there's a lot of stuff you have to think about. But yeah, like if you want to give it a shot, go ahead.
I mean, it's sort of it's a really interesting sort of way of playing Commander because it's like Commander has a considering that you can play any card in Magic's history effectively. Like some other formats have like a default pool of cards that they're pulling from. Standard is the last 3 or 4 sets. Modern is everything after a particular set. Pauper is everything that's common. Like there's already a restriction on the number of cards, and then there's a ban list that restricts it slightly more. Commander is starting from everything is legal, like literally everything ever. And so then the ban list is probably a similar length to something like Modern, but you got to keep in mind that the amount that it's restricting, like relatively speaking, is so much less because they're starting from the pool of every card ever. So
yeah.
it's really it makes you realize how broken some of the cards in Magic's history are when you play CEDH, because people are using, like, there's cards from all of Magic's history that are just crazy powerful that are completely legal in Commander, and in CEDH the sort of social contract of what is fun is kind of thrown out the window. So everyone just plays literally as powerfully as they can, which is really, it's really cool. I assume you have a lot of fun when you play CEDH.
Oh yeah, definitely. And just to build on the point of the, like, how you have every card in Magic's arsenal, or like pretty much every card in Magic's arsenal, I got into Commander because I was a huge Modern player back in the day, and Birthing Pod was legal. That is the big reason why I got into it, because I wanted to build a Birthing Pod deck, and that's kind of how Marin came about.
That's why you wanted Marin, because Marin is just like, well, yeah, it doesn't imply Birthing Pod, but it's definitely very, very, well, actually, no, I think it's not Birthing Pod, but it implies Birthing Pod. Yeah. No, Marin's really cool. Birthing Pod and Marin sort of fill that similar role of, my thing dies, which I don't care about because I get this cooler thing instead.
It's basically sack this value creature. It might do something when it dies, or, like whatever, or I might need to reanimate it, or it doesn't matter. Get another value creature out.
Repeat, wins. Yeah. No, Marin's really fun. I actually recently retooled my Marin deck because I've just become increasingly, like, bored with really, like, very conventional ways of winning. And so I've just found it, I have way more fun building a deck if it wins in a really unconventional way. I say that, but I have a million token decks. But, like, with Marin, I basically made it into, like, it's kind of like a Gerard, Golgari Lich Lord, I think that's what he's called. It's basically a Gerard deck now, where it doesn't want to reanimate lots of little creatures. It wants to have, like, a few huge ones and then sacrifice them to Gerard to drain the whole table. I actually haven't had a chance to play it because, we haven't been able to, but look forward
stuff
to
happens.
Yeah, stuff happens. Yeah, it's sort of, I don't know, it's almost funny doing this podcast at the moment because so few of us are actually playing any Commander. It's a good thing we're also passionate about it, so we, like, still have opinions and things, but yeah, sometimes I feel, like, grossly underqualified for this podcast because I'm like, when was the last time I actually played Commander? It's got to be weeks.
Trust me, mate, you're a lot more qualified than a lot of people I've seen. So,
oh, good. Now, in terms of what people know you for at the store, there's a couple of things. One of them will wait for a bit later, but one is definitely, I think, your knowledge of lore. Like, people can be describing a card and what makes it cool, like, functionally, and you'll be like, oh, and also, that's part of this story in which this thing happens. Liliana does this, Gideon does this. Rest in peace, Gideon. How much does does your knowledge of the story in Magic the Gathering, for those who don't know, most Magic sets release alongside a story or a series of short stories that are set in the universe that the cards take place, and often the cards kind of spell out the plot of this story from start to finish. War of the Spark is a great example. I'm not actually super aware of it, but basically all of the cards in that set, if you line them up on a timeline, you would basically get this story that is called War of the Spark in the cards, in the art, in what the cards are called. Like, it sketches out the whole story. You know the story so well, Stubbs, Cooper. Keep doing that. How much does it affect when you're building a deck? Your knowledge, like, the prompt I have here is, how wrong does it feel to play Mishra's Bauble in your Urza deck?
Alright, so I'm going to justify the Mishra's Bauble in the Urza deck.
Okay.
I've got two reasons. One, it's CDH, and unfortunately story doesn't matter in CDH when you have a bonkers card draw thing that's a 0 mana artifact.
It doesn't matter. Fuck it. Story be damned. Yeah.
And If I were to justify it, I would say that Urza keeps Mishra's Bauble as a reminder of what Phyrexian completion does to a person, and how, like, basically it's an oath. So to keep others from turning into that kind of thing that Mishra became, and to ultimately stop the threat of Phyrexia and of Yawgmoth.
Interesting. Again, not the most knowledgeable of the story, but I can get around that. That's kind of cool, actually. I almost like that more, like as a story perspective, than the fact that he's left him behind. Is that because they were they brothers, Mishra and Urza? Yeah.
Yes.
So, aren't we getting a set, Brothers War?
Yes.
And that's going to be Urza Mishra, right?
Yep. And I may or may not have mapped out every legendary creature that will make an appearance and what their color combos will be.
Like you predicted?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I
mean, you know enough. Like, I would trust it, honestly. I'd be like preemptively buying the cards for my next commander deck based on like a legendary creature. You'd be like, oh, there'll be this creature that'll do this, and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to buy that deck now in advance.
You'll create the deck and it'll do something different, and you'll go, damn it, subs. I'm like, mate, it's WotC. It's not me.
It's not me. Your predictions were flawless. So, like, was getting into the story sort of a part of when you started playing Magic? Like did it happen immediately when you picked up the game, or was it something that you noticed over time, or like how did you initially become aware of the story and get into it?
I was always a huge writer when I was a kid. I still am. I'm a junior copywriter. Well, eventually I'll be a junior copywriter. But when I picked up the cards, I always looked at the flavor text, because for some reason the flavor text just spoke out to me, and I kind of got entranced by the melody of the siren of Magic Stories. So yeah, that's why like my favorite sets were New Phyrexia and Innistrad, not because I started with them, that's also a part of it, but because the flavor text was awesome, and like it just really opened up the world as behind the cards. In a sense.
I really do think that it could be something that separates Magic the Gathering from other collectible card games, the story, because it's so entwined with the cards. Do you think? Like,
yes.
I feel like it's almost impossible. Like, I have not read, I think, one Magic the Gathering story, like official story, but I'm aware of the events because I'm aware of the cards.
And because I keep going on about them. Yeah.
Yes. Though, and I will say, as with most things Magic, James loves the War of the Spark story, probably because it's funny, interestingly. Like, I think that's one of the first sets he played when he got into Magic. So clearly, like, there's that attachment to when you started playing the game, but it's interesting that it's often tied to the story. Do you think there are, like, do you have, like, some favorite sets? So, you, obviously, Innistrad Phyrexia, you really love the flavor and the story there. Are there any others that you think are really noteworthy as being fantastic story sets?
I'm going to list off a couple. So, of course, the Scars and Mirrodin block is a really good, like, fantastic story set of Phyrexia winning, which is very pivotal. As much flack.
Do you want to just briefly explain what Phyrexia is? The sort of way that planes work in Magic. I just realized it's something that I'm sort of vaguely aware of, but some others might not. So just like vaguely how the planes work, and then what Phyrexia is, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So planes are basically where the set takes place on Magic the Gathering. They're pretty much like alternate universes. So, like Dominaria used to be the big one and was the big one. So that was the focus of Magic setting for a very long time. And then it branched off into other worlds, other universes. And that's what Planeswalkers do. They pretty much have the ability to travel through like the planes of reality into another plane of reality. That's the concept of the planes. And as for Phyrexia, it's this world where it strives for perfection, and the greatest perfection is turning flesh into steel and having them grafted together, because machines are ultimately perfect. So it combines the imperfection of flesh and the perfection of machinery and steel and metalwork into something truly terrifying.
Yeah, and a lot of the cards from Phyrexia are pretty freaky looking. Grafted exoskeleton. Terrifying, like, conceptually, card.
Even just look at the Phyrexian Praetors, like Alish Norn looks...
Oh, it's unnerving. Something about the way they're designed. It's obvious what they're going for. They're supposed to be that sort of real, I don't know if Uncanny Valley is the right term to use. Well, actually, maybe it is Uncanny Valley. You know, when something looks human but not quite.
Yes.
It's kind of unnerving, and definitely with Elish Norn, you look at it and you're like, it's like a person, but it's not a person. It's not a person. It's definitely not.
And especially, like, Jingataxis gives me back pains just looking at him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. It's so funny. I didn't even think about it, but just as you're reeling off the cards, I'm like picturing the art, which will obviously be up on the screen right now, and I'm getting like, yeah, it gets you like, they're all gross, you know? Yeah.
Like, even, I'd say Alish Norn's probably the scariest looking. I'd say if you delve into the art of both Vorinclexes, the Coldhide one and the New Phyrexia one, I really I get uncomfortable and frightened looking at it, because it's got massive arm ligaments where you can like slot your whole body through pretty much.
Oh
yeah.
I'm never looking at that card again. I haven't noticed it before, and I'm going to keep it that way. When people play Vorinclex, I'll be like, Vorinclex, yes! Looking the other way. I don't want to know.
If I can't see it, it can't hurt me.
It's not there. Vorinclex, right, the blank card. Yeah, cool, that card that's blank. Yeah, great. Do you reckon there are planes? No, not even. I'm going to put it to you. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Mm.
Which plane, so not set, so for people who don't know, like, the reason the planes are so remembered is because they're often revisited. You know, Innistrad, there was an original Innistrad set, but we just had Innistrad Midnight Hunt. We're about to have Innistrad Crimson Vow.
We had Crimson Shadows Vow. And Eldritch Moon, which is it gets a lot of flack, but I really love the story behind it.
So those are all set in the plane of Innistrad, all of those sets.
Yes.
So I'm giving you a little bit of extra room here. Which plane has the best commander cards?
Modern Horizons isn't a plane, damn it.
Oh, that's true. Those cards are busted. Modern Horizons 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah. It might be Alara.
Alara?
Yes, because...
Can you reel off some all-star Alara commander cards?
Idris, Derevi, Breya. There's another one that I'm forgetting. But those three are pretty much like the all-stars.
They're great commanders, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's another one. There's another couple of ones. I think, yeah, I might give it to Alara. Otherwise, Eldraine's got some really good commander cards. Well, it's got...
Oh, yeah. Well, Eldraine was just a busted set. Yeah. It's just got really good cards, full stop. Yeah. For those, yeah, like, I guess a brief rundown. I actually wasn't playing very much in Eldraine, but I'm very aware of the cards because everyone is. Well, if you play Commander, you see them all the time. It's sort of the particular time, I think they've definitely moved away from it now, where... in fact, I think I mentioned it earlier, a sort of similar thing about Urza around the Modern Horizons time, but during Eldraine, creatures just did more.
Yeah.
Like, every creature that had a good ability had 2 more good abilities too. Like, the big meme is Questing Beast, where nobody remembers, like, nobody can remember every ability on Questing Beast because there are too many, and some of them you're like, It does what? Like, you can't prevent combat damage. Like, I thought that Daniel at our store was making a meme deck when he said he's going to make a questing beast deck. I was like, oh, haha, good one. But he put all these fogs in it. And I was like, like, then they can't attack you. And he was like, no, they're all one-sided. Because questing beast says that its damage can't be prevented. So you just fog every single turn. Fog, for those who don't know, is a spell that prevents all combat damage that will be dealt that turn. But because Questing Beast says you can't do that, but only for Questing Beast attacks every turn, but no one can block properly because the damage is prevented.
And you also
ridiculous.
Can't chump it because it can't be buffed by power 2 or less.
Oh, it's true. What the hell is that card? Anyway, I was going to say that it's such a meme, that particular card, but Eldraine in larger form. There is a very funny, I don't know if you've heard of this, Cooper. There's a website called Questing Beast Generator.
Yep, I've seen it.
You've seen it?
It's so funny.
It is so funny. It is so funny. Basically, you can hit refresh on your browser and it will generate you a Questing Beast. And when I say Questing Beast, I don't mean like the card. I mean like it will give you a creature with far too many abilities. And it will make you laugh. Like there are abilities that have not been printed forever, like Rampage and Banding, because they're so confusing. They literally don't print them anymore, and it's like bands with other questing beasts is like one you'll get sometimes. Or like like it'll say trample and just like stupid, I can do everything cards. Very funny.
Yeah, and there's also like I did one after Thruster was released. Like, no, not released, sorry. I did one after Thruster Tempest Roar was spoiled. And it already had Trample over Planeswalkers on it. And I was like, the person running this site has too much free time on their hands.
Committed. Because that's Thruster. That just came out like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But Eldraine is like a year and a half old. So that means that someone has been keeping the Questing Beast Generator like up to date for the last year. That is such commitment. I love that.
It's so
love
good.
that. What are other like really good? I'm trying to think of other really good Eldraine commander cards, because I think you might be onto something there, and that being like really amazing. There's Great Henge comes to mind. That's an absolute all-star commander card. No. Oh no, I'm stupid. I was gonna say is Galter from Eldraine, and then it's like, no, Walt. Galter's a dinosaur. He's from Ixalan, like all the other dinosaurs.
I can hear Nick seething with rage.
Nick would be furious. I'm surprised you're not more furious. You're the law one. You're like, what the fuck would Galter be doing with all the knights on... Actually, I want to see that now. I want to see Eldraine versus Ixalan. Dinosaurs versus knights and fairies and... Have there been sets like that? I know there was like the dual decks, which were like speed versus cunning and stuff. But have they ever made like plane versus plane?
Well, do you want to... Actually, no, you can't really count Shadows over Innistrad because that's... Oh, wait.
Sorry, I just realized that like the whole Phyrexia thing, right? Isn't there literally Phyrexia versus
Dominaria?
Dominaria? Yeah, okay.
From the
this is one of the only bits of the lore that I know.
from the Invasion storyline, which is probably one of the best stories in Magic's history, and probably one of the best lore blocks because it wraps everything up in such a nice little package.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. My next question was going to be like, is there a really good first story? Is that just like an all-star in general, or do you think like if someone's brand new to lore at least and really wants to get their teeth stuck into the Magic the Gathering lore, do you think they should start with Invasion? Is that a good place to begin?
Ooh, definitely not.
Okay.
You kind of need to know a lot of backstory for Invasion, but I've got two answers for this. If you want old school lore, you start with the Thran, because that basically sets up the entire Urza Mishra storyline. It sets up Yawgmoth and Phyrexia. even has Rebek and Glacian, and I know you particularly like Rebek for
Yes, I do.
commander-related reasons.
Rebek is one of the partners at the helm of my very silly Golem tribal deck, which, hey, is on this channel. You know what? I'm gonna put it in the cards. So in the top right, I think it is, of the screen right now, there will be a link to my Golem tribal deck, which Rebek is the commander of. Good. Very well done, Cooper. Very well done.
If you want, so here's the thing I'd recommend for players getting into the story now, because the Gatewatch is such a huge focus at the moment. Definitely, I'd check out the Magic Origins prequel stories, because they're genuinely well written. You get a sense of each Gatewatch member, and then if you want to read on for that, give Battle for Zendikar a shot, just so that like you get the understanding of where the Gatewatch came from and how it came to be. And then so like you can pretty much, with that, you get the entire Gatewatch story set up and you can go read all about it. I'd avoid the novels for War of the Spark and Eldraine and Ikoria, because they're not well written and they don't really do the characters justice. Like,
oh wow, that's so funny, because I thought the War of the Spark story was really beloved. Is it just the novels in particular that are not
it's
good?
It's just a novel. The story itself is really good. It's like an ultimate end game, which is kind of cool. But yeah, read the Wikipedia pages and stuff. Don't buy the novels. The novels aren't that good, because I don't think the author got a good sense of what the characters are. A lot of out of character moments, especially from long time lore fans.
I've heard. Is this the source of the controversy around? Because there was a character who everyone thought was really queer coded, and then was it the War of the Spark novels where they were suddenly like, no, but actually, in very typical queer baiting fashion. Which character is it? I can't think of it off the top. Is it Chandra?
Yeah, it was Chandra. So originally it was like Chandra and Nissa had kind of like the sparks of a relationship. Pun not intended, because Chandra's a pyromancer.
And also sparks.
Yeah.
Like planeswalkers have an ignited spark, right? That's how they travel planes.
Yeah.
Double pun. Love it.
Double pun. Yeah, so like originally there was a spark of romance. There was a lot of hints and stuff, and they were gearing up to be a really good couple. And then at the end of War of the Spark, this probably wasn't done by the author, but just by like the notes and the prompts that they were given. Sorry, can't remember who the author was. But yeah, basically Chandra is just like, oh no, I like men now. Which is like, it really just, it pissed off a lot of people, myself included, because you've betrayed the characters. Like,
yeah. Oh, it's I think it's arguably more disappointing than a story having no representation for queer characters. I find it more frustrating as a queer person to have to sit through really shitty half representation, rather than people just being like, yeah, look, just decide. Either they're queer or they're not. You know, it's totally fine. We don't care that much as long as you don't bait us into thinking something.
I totally agree, yeah. But yeah, if you want good stories for a first timer, look up the Thran. If you want old school stuff, Origins prequels are really good. And yeah, like, you know, come chat with me. I love chatting about the story.
Oh, I bet. And you recommended the Wikipedia. Do you rate because I know that on the actual Magic website they post a lot of short stories there. Do you rate some of those for story as well?
Yes, please read them. You can get a rough summary of the Wikipedia page. It usually has a lot there, but if you read into the story, you get a really good sense of a couple of the characters and stuff. Especially for the Origins prequels, if you can find the Origins stories, read them directly from the Magic website. Read a lot of the Gatewatch stories from the Magic website. a lot of the older stuff you will have to read the Wikipedia page just because like it used to be published in novels, and the novels are either out of circulation or really hard to come by. So yeah.
Yeah, for the older ones, definitely. I imagine the Thran. I doubt they'd be very much online for the Thran with there, because that's really long ago now in Magic's history. Yeah.
Oh, like nearly 30 years ago.
God, it's crazy to think the game's that old, but it is. That's wild. Now, the other thing that you're known for, Cooper, so the story is definitely a big one, but you also play a lot of Infect. So Infect, for those who don't know, is one of the ways you can win a game of Commander or Magic generally, is if someone has 10 poison counters, they lose the game. 10 or more, I should say. And there are certain creatures that have an ability called Infect, which means that when they deal damage to creatures, they deal it in the form of -1 counters. So, like it works similarly in a lot of instances, but if I'm attacking Cooper with a 2/2 creature with Infect and he's got a 3/3 blocker, when they do their little damage thing, my 2/2 will die, but that 3/3 will have 2 -1 counters put on it, so it'll be a 1/1 now. If that creature deals combat damage to a player, it will deal it in the form of Infect counters. And so, yes, rather than do that big 40 damage that is required to win in Commander, usually you can do 10 Infect to someone and win that way. However, it's controversial. Some people don't like it in the same way that some people don't like Commander damage. They don't like that you can die from 21 damage from someone's Commander instead of, the usual 40. Do you find it difficult to bust out your Infect decks at tables at the store?
I'm generally pretty nice about it. I always ask permission before I bust it out, because obviously each play is different. You might not like Infect. That's completely fine. It is a bit of a degenerate mechanic, so it's cool if you don't like it. Well, I won't play it. I'll just play one of the 3 decks that don't have Infect in it.
You're seeing now why he's known as the Infect player. 13 of 16 decks have Infect in them.
But yeah, like I'll always ask permission. A simple no will suffice. I don't need to know the backstory as to why you really hate Infect and how it stole your wife and left the kids and stuff like that. If you do give me those backstories, I will just play Infect against you, because I'm a bit.
That's incentive.
Yeah. However, though, if I find that you're not being very nice at the table and not being very cooperative, or you're lying about your deck's power level or anything like that, I will not ask to bust out Infect. I will just play Infect, and I will make you think about what you've done.
Cooper's the sheriff, guys. If you're gonna be playing, if you're gonna be busting out your super tuned, Najeela deck at the store. That Najeela is a really popular CDH deck, and you're not telling people. So this is fine. CDH is fine. You just have to say when you start the game, hey, this deck is CDH. It wants to win really, really quickly. Are you guys cool with that? I like that a lot, Cooper, asking if people are happy with Infect. And I do think it's right to say, just no is enough. Because it's pretty simple. Like, so if someone doesn't want to play Infect, don't make them. It's pretty straightforward. You could have a chat with them later in a sort of a different setting, where it's not like, a yes or no, are we playing the deck or not? And you might be able to be like, hey, it's not that bad. Maybe you can try piloting one and just see how much fun it is to actually play. That's sort of a different conversation. But, if people have come to the store, they're here to have fun, people just want to play the way they want to play, and that's totally fine. Someone says no Infect, it's no, right?
And I've been playing Infect for since I've started playing, because it was a really cheap deck to build, and I went 5-0 at the first modern FNM that I went to with Infect. and the game score was like 10-1, so I was pretty dominant.
Wow.
I also went on the longest win streak I've ever had with that deck. Back when Inkmoth Nexus was $5 each.
Oh, no longer.
No longer. Definitely no longer. But yeah, like, I get it. It's like a yes or no. If you want to like test your own deck against it and see like, yeah, like I really want to be under the pump. I want to see how I perform under pressure. By all means, I'll gladly play against you. If you say like, if I say, can I play this Saskia Infect deck? They'll be like, hey, yeah, why not? Like, yep, I'll play it. But if you just say, no thanks, I don't really like Infect, don't really have to explain why. I've been playing this game for a long time. I've been playing the archetype for a long time. Yeah. I get it. I completely get it.
In terms of, so yeah, that conversation that you have before a game is often referred to as Rule Zero. Some people, very pedantic people, might I add, will point out that the Rule Zero conversation is technically that the ban list is intended to be advisory only for Commander. And so basically they said Rule Zero was if before a game, this is by the way coming from the official rules committee for Commander, which existed before it became an official format for Wizards. So it's a lot enduring thing. When they came up with all of the rules that they wanted to be sort of official, they said, yeah, Rule Zero. If you have a card that is banned but you think it's fine and you want to play it, just talk to people before the game. But now it's sort of this catch-all term for, have a conversation before the game starts about what you expect. And, I'm a member of the general committee at our store that represents the community of the people at our store. And it's something we've been really trying to emphasize is that, it's fine to have preferences. You just got to be upfront about them. Do you have any tips for making those Rule Zero conversations a bit more sort of seamless, or even for do you have any sort of pitfalls? Like, do you think there are ways that people go about those conversations wrong that you could point out as well?
I feel like a lot of so my big tip for Rule Zero is like what you learn to do at the start of like working in a new workplace or something. Just speak up if you're unsure about anything, and make sure that you raise issues in an objective manner and not a subjective manner.
Oof, that's tough.
Yeah,
that is tough. But it can be done.
It can be done. Yeah. So like when you have an issue with something, just like bring it up civilly. Like it's a fun format. It's meant to be enjoyed by all. Just be civil, be nice, be constructive as well. That's a very huge part. I feel like a lot of people get stuck in their old ways, get like really passionate about it. Just bring it back a bit and remember that this is just this is a new player having a bit of an issue. We just need to like go through it together and come out on top. Have a good conversation about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, the format is about fun. And everyone who plays Commander is just trying to have fun. There's often this sort of discrepancy that people have between cards that are fun and cards that are CEDH. Even that, I think, is nonsense. Because CEDH players have an absolute ball playing Commander. There's a reason that no one's rocking up with a CEDH deck going, I will win no matter what. I hate this game. Like, no one is like that. Even CEDH players are sitting down to have fun. It's just that their idea of what is fun is maybe not even all the time. You've got a CEDH deck, you've got decks that aren't CEDH, but some of the time their idea of fun is I want to win as fast as possible. I want to be stopped. I want to stop others from winning. I want to slow the game down. These are the sorts of play styles that a CEDH has. But someone who just bought a precon, who's coming to the store, they might sit down and be like, this is the deck. This is the Commander, and someone's like, oh, what power level is it? And it's like, they don't know. They've got no idea. It's a new deck they've just bought. They've got no idea. If you just go like, oh, is that a precon? Sure. I have a few decks here that are sort of pretty powerful, but I don't think that'll work very well against a precon. I might play. My default is my Reese the Redeem deck, just because it's like tokens, like it's slow, takes a while. I don't have any of those like doubling season sort of effects where you get, you know, lots of tokens and it's out of hand. Yeah, do you have decks specifically for playing against newer players?
Yes and no. I do have a specific deck that is designed to just be played against the new players, just to ease them into the format. I've got a couple of like really, like just really laid back decks. Like my token deck in Prava and Kamal is really laid back. Kangi can be really laid back, which like that's how I built the deck. I just wanted to build flyers and shit. But also if there's a new player with a precon, I'll still play. I'll still offer to play decks like Azuri and Feather, but I will tone back my piloting, and I will just like I'll keep a hold of like my stuff. I won't go for combos or anything. I will tone down the deck in a piloting sense, just to make sure that they have a fun time, and if they get a win, like awesome. That's one of their first commander wins. It's awesome to see. But yeah, like what I want to do with new players, especially with precons, is I will often draw the game a bit out just so that they get a sense of what all their cards can do, and like just really experience the format a bit.
Yeah, and I think you know, like when I think about some of my first games of Commander that I think about really fondly, it's because they were like it was me and my housemates. This was last year during lockdown. We had nothing else to do, so we just sort of built decks. And our first decks were just built with the cards that we had, which, you know, some of them happened to be good. I remember like one of my first mystery boosters I opened, I got Expropriate. So that was like that was the big bad scary card at our table for a long time. It was like, oh shit, well, it casts Expropriate. He's probably won. And like that was really fun. Like the games would go forever, but there was so much politicking. The boards got huge. It was just like a really delicate thing of like someone could probably kill someone with their big attack, but then they would die on the crack back to someone else. So they'd go like, oh, I want to attack. I've got so many creatures, but I won't pass. And it would just go round and round like that until someone had the right combination. And you know, that is a totally valid Commander experience. Those long, grindy games where everyone's just building these huge forts out of all their cards. Like that's valid, I think.
Yeah. And like to be clear, I will never ever play a CDH deck against a precon. Even with like the toning down stuff, I will never do that.
No. I mean, there's some cards you can't tone down, right? Like back to basics.
Oh.
How do you explain it? Although, ironically, a precon probably has so many basic lands that back to basics isn't so bad. Yeah.
And the only reason why back to basics is in Urza is mainly like if I play it as a stacks piece, that's kind of really bad. I'm mainly using it as a pitch to like Force of Will and Force of Negation, right, and like all the blue cards
card that you want to get rid of. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Even like Chrome Mox or Gemstone Caverns or stuff like that. Yeah, I'm mainly using it as a pitch to those things.
Well, I actually had a few other questions for you, Cooper, but I've realised we're getting on for time a bit, so I might move right on to the rapid fire questions. Sorry, I should explain. So the rapid fire questions are just for the end of the episode. Just wanting like sort of one sentence, you know, shortish answers. And we'll sort of fly through them a little bit.
Easy. I'm ready.
Which card is most overrated?
I'm gonna say four things actually: Burgeoning, Gisela, Shadowborn Apostles, and Ancestral Vision.
Interesting. That's a very varied group of cards. You've got Ancestral Vision is sort of like a card draw effect that, well, it's sort of a throwback to a really old card called Ancestral Recall that is banned everywhere because it's too good. But Ancestral Visions is like a way slower version. Shadowborn Apostles, interesting.
Yeah, because with Shadowborn Apostles, you're mainly fetching one of two demons, which like it just becomes a bit too predictable.
That's fair. I think I have a really fun place in my heart for Shadow Bond Apostles just because of a fantastic Game Nights episode. Game Nights is a series of gameplay videos released by Command Zone, the Command Zone podcast, that are really, really good. Very high production. And there's an episode where Josh Lee Kwai is playing a Shadow Bond Apostles deck, and he gets an Edgewalker down, which is such a... I just thought, what a clever card to put in, because it reduces the cost of cleric spells by a black and a white, I think. And so your Shadowborn Apostles cost nothing, but he had it paired with... It was an Athreos God of Passage deck. So when a creature dies... So you had this whole engine, basically, where when a Shadowborn Apostles... So you do the Shadowborn Apostles sacrifice thing, and then Athreos says you can have someone pay life, and otherwise they'll go to your hand. And so he was just kept on targeting one person with almost no life. It was Jimmy, typically. And so Jimmy would have to say, no, they go to your hand. And then he has Edgewalker down, so the Shadowborn Apostles cost nothing. So he'd play them again and sacrifice them again. And he could just keep on doing this and getting more demons. It was very cool. But I respect the reasoning. I think it's probably the kind of commander deck people play once or twice and then go, oh, this is the same every time.
Yeah. You're mainly fetching the same demons every time, like Runescar Demon, Razaketh, and if you want to go for your win, you fetch Bells and Locks. So that's mainly why I said it was a bit overrated.
Yeah, fair enough. I respect it. Most underrated card.
I've got two. One you'll love. One is Twiddle, because I've lost to it 3 times. Twice from the host of this podcast. And the other one is Night Soil.
Night Soil. What's Night Soil do?
So it is a 2 green enchantment, and what it does is you pay 1, and as an additional cost, exile 2 creature cards from a single graveyard.
This card!
Put a 1/1 green sapling creature token onto the battlefield.
Yes. So I remember when when I was starting to play, actually, funnily enough, at the kitchen table with my housemates, which included James, I would frequently recur the card Spore Frog using Merrin, and people just could not get their head around how to stop this from happening every single turn, because you would play Spore Frog, someone would attack you, you would sacrifice it, prevent all the damage. At the beginning of your next end step, you use Merrin, you get Spore Frog back onto the battlefield, you repeat, and basically one person every turn is doing no damage to you because you're fogging. And Daniel said you should play Night Soil, and at first I was like, it's like any graveyard hate card. But really important detail: the cost of the ability is exiling the creature cards, which means that the way the stack works in Magic, a cost is paid, and then the effect goes on the stack. I might be butchering this. I'm sorry for any rules lawyers out there. But basically, you pay the cost, then the effect goes on the stack. Normally, that means you tap your mana, you cast the spell goes on the stack. That's usually how it happens. But it can also happen with stuff like this. And in this case, because you are exiling the creature cards from a graveyard as part of the cost, when the ability of putting the Saproling into play goes on the stack, the cards are already gone. So what this usually means is that when someone tries to... Because normally when someone tries to get something out of your graveyard, you can respond and put something... Like even a card like Bajuka Bog, a land that enters the battlefield, it exiles someone's graveyard. You can respond, because that trigger goes on the stack. You can respond with a card like...
I use Perpetual Timepiece as a response
to... Perpetual Timepiece. That's a great example of a card that you could then... you shuffle your library back in, or you shuffle a few cards back in response. But with Night Soil, because it's part of the cost, when that ability goes on the stack and the player being targeted, gets the opportunity to respond, the creature cards are already gone. So there's nothing you can do.
The only thing you can do is play a land at instant speed if there's an effect in the game that does that. I'm not sure if there is, but that is the only way you can interact with it.
It's such a bizarre card, but it works at what it does. And it's like kind of not that bad of a rate either. Pay 2, get a Saproling is not terrible. So it's not a bad card, but it's mostly that excellent graveyard. Hey.
It's a pretty good like graveyard hate card specifically for creatures.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it costs like 10 cents as well if you want to pick it up. It's from a set that was grossly overprinted, so there are a lot of copies of it out there.
Twiddle, by the way, that the reason I was laughing my head off at that, my Around Me deck, Around Me with the Dead Tide, you reanimate stuff from your graveyard when you tap Around Me, basically. I won't go into Encore because it's complicated. But you basically get stuff back from your graveyard, or you get copies of stuff from your graveyard. And I run a card called Twiddle, which is a 1-drop instant that untaps target artifact, creature, or land, I think. There is actually, funnily enough, I found out there is a pauper build called Twiddle Storm, which is actually quite popular. But which uses the card Twiddle. But basically, all I use it for is just to untap Around Me so I can use Around Me again. And it's just the most, like, efficient card to do that with. But yeah, a couple of times I've killed Stubbs. And the first time it happened, Stubbs just said, "Oh my god, I can't believe I just lost to Twiddle."
It happened again. It happened again against you and fucking Around Me. Oh, I lost to Twiddle twice. I lost to it in CDH because some dude was just like, "Alright, pay blue, Twiddle, untap the Gaia's Cradle." I was like, "Oh, I've lost to it again!"
Twiddle! It's your nemesis. Oh my god.
I love hate it.
Yeah, 100%. I think we'll wrap it up there, but I just want one more answer out of you, which is, this whole program is about trying to be a better Commander player. That's, why I ask you guys all these questions. I want to learn to be a better Commander player, a better Magic player, and I hope that others can do the same. In the interest of self-improvement, what do you think you could work on as a Commander player?
For me personally, taking the game a lot more seriously because when I play Commander, I often use it to unwind, so I don't take it as seriously as I would standard or historic or modern or CDH. But yeah, take the game seriously. And just in general for people, do threat assessment. Really sit down and think. If you want to get better at threat assessment, the best way you can do it is just have a Commander game where there's a more experienced player looking over your shoulder and everyone's agreed to it, and the experienced player is just saying see this, what do you think is the biggest threat here? Look at their hands, see what they have, look at their graveyards, see what they have. Is there anything threatening? Do they have anything in exile that's going to come back? What potentially could they have? Have they searched for anything? Just be aware of it.
I think as well that one of the good things about Commander is that often the people who introduce it to you are people who are way better than you. That was definitely the case with me. And so even if you're not necessarily looking over have someone looking over your shoulder, just see how the other players evaluate the board. I can only say this for the people at our particular store, but Daniel is outstanding at threat assessment because he just knows all the cards really well. And so, someone will have this huge board full of creatures, but he's focusing on someone else because he knows that they have a combo in their deck. Because their commander goes infinite with a particular other card. And so he's just no, as long as that commander's down, they could go infinite at any time. I'm killing them first. Which is solid reasoning. It's just something you don't know when you're beginning. You just kind of look at the card and you're oh, that's what that card does. But he's not thinking of the card. He's thinking what that card does with everything else. I'll be picking Daniel's brain about that. So keep your eyes out for future episodes because I will be talking to Daniel about threat assessment specifically. Well, that's about all we have time for. Is there anything you want to plug? Anywhere we can find you online, Subs?
I've got a folio link which I hope we'll put it on the screen. I've got a comic on Instagram called Insert Subject Matter Here. Basically a comic about university students struggling with university because university is a pain in the butt, which is fair enough.
I haven't seen that. I'll have to give that a follow.
And a question specifically for you, Walt. I do have a beer blog. Would you mind if I plug that, or are we just gonna just ignore it?
What's the context of the beer blog?
I basically review craft beers.
I'm fine with that.
Oh yeah, all right, yeah. Sweet. Yeah,
we're not endorsing drinking.
No.
We're just saying, like, if you enjoy your beer and if you are of legal age, then just check it a follow. Is that on Instagram as well?
No, it's on Medium. The link's in the folio somewhere. Cool. So yeah,
it'll be in the description of the video as well if people are interested. I'm not sure there's many people who would actively condone underage drinking. No, I can think of a few. Anyway, on that note, on underage drinking, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for joining me, Cooper, and thanks for all your wonderful knowledge on law and stuff.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
That's all good. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for the next episode. Have a good one.